In a small town where everyone knew each other and every street seemed to whisper the same stories, there lived a young woman who always felt a little apart. She walked along the quiet roads with a sense of curiosity that often made her pause and look at the world differently from the people around her. The town was a place of simple pleasures and routines where the rhythm of life was measured by familiar faces and repeated events. Each morning she would see the bakery owner arranging fresh bread and the children hurrying to school with worn backpacks and bright eyes. She greeted them all politely, but always felt a space between herself and the town, as if she was watching the world through a gentle glass wall. She liked the town, and she liked its people, but she could not shake the feeling that life was bigger than what she saw on those streets. She spent hours thinking about what lay beyond the small shops and the quiet fields. She read old books in the library, and sometimes wrote in a notebook about things she could not share with anyone else. These thoughts made her different in ways the townspeople sometimes noticed and sometimes ignored. She loved the town, but she also longed for something that could not be named easily. Her family was part of the town's story for generations. They ran a small shop that sold daily essentials and was a place where news and opinions floated around like leaves in the wind. Her parents were kind and caring, and they wished for her to follow the path that most girls in the town took. They wanted her to marry someone familiar from the town and live a life that was safe and respected. They did not understand why she would spend hours alone thinking or why she would talk about places she had never been. They loved her deeply, but often worried that her heart was set on something impossible. She could feel their love and their worry, and sometimes it made her retreat further into her own thoughts. She did not want to disappoint them, but she also could not stop imagining the world beyond the town. The town had a rhythm that people rarely questioned. Days began with the sunrise and ended with the soft glow of lamps and windows. People worked, they celebrated small events, and they followed traditions that had been passed down through decades. On market days, the streets were lively with vendors and neighbors chatting and exchanging news. She would watch the scene from a distance and feel the warmth of community, but also a tug of unease. She was not unhappy in the town, but she was not entirely comfortable either. She felt a calling that she could not explain. It was not a rebellion against the town or her family, but a quiet insistence that she had to find her own way. Her friends in the town were kind and enjoyed her company. They laughed together, shared stories, sometimes planned small adventures like walking to the river or collecting flowers from the fields. She enjoyed these moments, but they were never enough. Her mind would wander to dreams that seemed distant and perhaps impossible. She thought about learning things that were not taught in the small school, about traveling, about seeing the world with her own eyes. She could not share these thoughts openly because the town had little understanding for dreams that were not grounded in its streets and fields. Still, she could not stop dreaming. She knew that one day she would have to make choices that were hard and perhaps lonely. She had to prepare herself for that quietly. In the moments when no one was watching, there were times when she felt the pressure of the town's gaze. People would comment on her habits, her clothes, and the way she spoke. They did not mean harm, but they measured life by certain standards that she did not always meet. She learned to smile politely, to nod when advice was given, and to listen to opinions even when they clashed with her heart. She did not reject the town or its ways, but she did not fully belong to them either. The small town seemed to carry invisible rules about how life should be lived, and she could not fit herself neatly into those rules. She learned to balance her own desires with the expectations around her, skill that required quiet strength and patience. Her parents often tried to guide her gently toward familiar paths. They would talk about the people she should meet, the opportunities that were considered proper, and the kind of life that most families in the town admired. They spoke out of love and experience, hoping to keep her safe. She listened carefully, absorbing their words and thinking deeply about them. Sometimes she agreed, and sometimes she did not. The moments when she did not agree were the hardest because she could see the worry in their eyes. Yet she could not ignore the feelings inside her that called for exploration. She had a sense that her life had a story that was hers alone to write. It was a thought that gave her hope and made the quiet streets of the town feel both comforting and confining at the same time. She would spend hours walking alone in the early morning when the town was just waking. The soft mist over the fields and the sound of birds created a space where she could think freely. She imagined places far away with mountains, oceans, and cities that never slept. She imagined meeting people who thought differently and learning new things that would challenge her understanding. These walks were her secret moments of freedom. She felt alive in these hours, as if the world itself was calling to her. She knew that these thoughts might not be understood by anyone in the town, but they gave her a sense of purpose. Each day she returned from her walk with a little more courage and a little more determination to see what life could offer beyond the familiar streets. School was a place where she sometimes felt both included and different. Teachers admired her intelligence and curiosity, but classmates often whispered about her strange ideas. She did not mind their whispers because they were part of living in a place where everyone watched everyone else. She learned to speak carefully, to share what she could without inviting criticism. At the same time, she found joy in books, in learning, and in asking questions that pushed the limits of what was taught. She became known as thoughtful and reflective, a girl who could listen carefully and notice things others missed. This made her admired by some and misunderstood by others. She carried this balance with grace, understanding that being different in a small town required both courage and subtlety. Her life was full of small joys. She enjoyed the smell of bread from the bakery, the laughter of children in the playground, and the changing colors of the fields through the seasons. She loved listening to the stories of elders who spoke about times long past. She appreciated the kindness of neighbors who helped one another without asking for anything in return. The town had warmth and familiarity, and she loved it deeply. Yet she could not ignore the feeling that there was more beyond the horizon. She knew that staying would mean comfort, but leaving could mean adventure. This knowledge created a quiet tension inside that she carried with both hope and anxiety. There were moments when she confided in a close friend, someone who understood the pull she felt toward the unknown. They would sit under the large tree by the river and talk about dreams, about places they wanted to see, and about life beyond the town. These conversations were precious. They reminded her that she was not completely alone in her thoughts and desires. They gave her courage to continue imagining a future that might seem impossible to most people she knew. Her friend never judged her and always listened with patience and understanding. These secret talks became a lifeline, a way to nurture the dreams that could not yet be shared with the wider town. Evenings in the town were quiet and reflective. She would sit by her window looking at the soft glow of lamps and houses across the street. The sky would turn shades of pink and orange as the sun disappeared, and she would feel a mixture of calm and restlessness. She thought about the day that had passed, about conversations and small moments that mattered, and about the life she hoped to create. She felt a strong connection to her town and her family. Yet she knew that following her heart might mean making choices that others would not understand. This thought both frightened and excited her. She was learning to live with it, to carry it gently within herself, and to prepare for the moment when her life would take a turn toward the unknown. Her dreams were simple yet profound. She wanted to explore, to learn, to experience life fully. She wanted to meet people who could teach her new perspectives and challenge her understanding. She wanted to feel that she had chosen her own path and lived according to her own heart. These dreams were not meant to reject her town, but to complement her life in ways the small streets and familiar faces could not provide. She carried these dreams quietly, nurturing them in her heart while continuing to be part of the town she loved. It was a delicate balance, one that required patience, courage, and hope. The young woman knew that her choice would one day come. She did not yet know how it would unfold or what obstacles she would face. She only knew that she could not ignore the call she felt inside. Each day, she grew more aware of the path that lay before her. And each day, she gathered small pieces of strength and understanding. She felt a connection to something larger than the town, something that promised growth, learning, and self-discovery. She could not yet see the end of her journey, but she felt certain that it would be meaningful and true to her heart. In the quiet of the small town, among the familiar streets and faces, she walked with a sense of purpose that no one could yet see. Her heart was full of dreams, her mind full of questions, and her spirit full of hope. She knew that living fully might mean making choices that others could not understand, but she felt ready to face whatever came next. Each moment of her ordinary life was preparing her for an extraordinary journey. She carried the love of her family, the warmth of the town, and the secret flame of her own desires. This was the beginning of a story that belonged entirely to her. A story that would unfold beyond the quiet streets, beyond the familiar fields, and into the life she was destined to create. The young woman woke. Early one morning, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness, she had made a decision that she knew would change her life, and she could not wait any longer to follow it. The choice was something the small town had never seen before, something her family and friends would struggle to understand. She did not make it lightly, she thought, for weeks and months, weighing her heart against the expectations around her. Now the time had come to act. She could feel the energy of possibility in the air as she walked through the quiet streets, noticing the familiar faces, the small shops, and the fields that had always been part of her life. She loved these things, but she also knew she had to step beyond them. Her decision was to leave the town for a new life that offered learning and growth far beyond what the town could provide. She wanted to pursue knowledge, meet people who thought differently, and explore places she had only read about in books. It was not an escape from the town, but a step toward becoming who she truly was. She packed her belongings carefully, choosing items that were practical yet meaningful. Each object carried memories and significance, a reminder of where she had come from. She felt a twinge of sadness leaving behind the streets she had walked countless times, the faces she had known since childhood, and the comfort of her home. But the pull of possibility was stronger than any fear or doubt as news of her decision spread through the town. Reactions were swift and mixed. Some neighbors whispered in corners, unsure of what to make of her choice. They had known her since she was a child and could not imagine a life so different from their own. Others openly questioned her parents, expressing surprise or disapproval. The town had a rhythm of predictability, and she was breaking it. Her choice challenged the familiar patterns of life and the deeply held beliefs about what was proper. She understood the whispers and glances, but she did not let them shake her determination. Her heart was set, and her mind was clear. She had thought carefully about the path she was taking. Her parents were proud, yet anxious. They loved her and wanted the best for her, but they worried about the unknown. They asked questions about her plans, the people she would meet, and the skills she would need. They hoped she had thought about the difficulties and the loneliness that could come. She reassured them as best she could, explaining her intentions and the careful steps she had planned. She told them she would stay in touch and that she would be careful. Their eyes reflected both fear and trust. They realized that this was a moment that could not be stopped, and that supporting her, even with worry in their hearts, was the only way to show love. As the day approached for her to leave, she felt the weight of the town's attention. People she had known all her life looked at her with curiosity, concern, and sometimes judgment. She greeted them politely, understanding their feelings, yet she remained focused on the choice she had made. She knew that their reactions were natural, and that they came from love, tradition, and fear of the unknown. She forgave them quietly in her mind for their inability to see the world as she did. She also forgave herself for any hurt her decision might cause. She felt a strange combination of courage and melancholy. She was stepping into something unknown, but she felt ready on the morning of her departure. She walked the streets one last time. The sun was rising, casting soft golden light across the rooftops and fields. She saw the bakery with fresh bread arranged neatly, the children running to school, and the shopkeepers preparing for the day. Everything seemed ordinary, yet carried a quiet significance for her. She breathed deeply, memorizing the sights and sounds of the town that had shaped her. She felt gratitude for the lessons, love, and experiences she had received. She knew that leaving was not about rejecting the town, but about embracing the world beyond it. The journey beyond the town was both exhilarating and frightening. She carried only what she needed, relying on her instincts and preparation. As the town receded in the distance, she felt a strange mixture of relief, sadness, and anticipation. The familiar fields and streets became memories she would carry in her heart. She faced the unknown with courage, knowing that her choice would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. She thought about the people she would meet, the knowledge she would gain, and the experiences that awaited her. Each step was a step toward growth, independence, and discovery. Her first days in the new place were filled with challenges. She had to navigate unfamiliar streets, meet strangers, and adjust to new routines. She sometimes felt lonely, missing the familiarity of the small town. There were moments when she questioned her choice, wondering if she had acted too quickly or if she would ever belong here. But each challenge also taught her resilience. She learned to ask for help when needed, to listen carefully, and to trust her own judgment. She discovered that independence required patience, courage, and flexibility. The more she faced the world, the more she understood her own strength. She also began to form new connections. She met people who shared her interests, who challenged her thinking, and who inspired her to learn more. These friendships were different from those in the town. They were built on shared curiosity, mutual respect, and openness to ideas. She found joy in conversations that stretched her understanding and expanded her imagination. She realized that choosing a path of her own had opened doors that she could not have imagined before. The world was larger, more complex, and more beautiful than she had thought, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment in being part of it despite the excitement. She sometimes thought about the town and the people she had left behind. She wondered how her family and neighbors were reacting, how they felt about her choice, and whether they understood her reasons. She hoped that in time they would see that her decision was not a rejection but an expression of who she was. She carried memories of the town in her heart, drawing strength from the familiar love and support that had nurtured her. She knew that her choice was only the beginning of a long journey, one that would require perseverance, courage, and faith in herself. As days turned into weeks, she grew more confident in her path. She developed skills she had only dreamed of, explored ideas she had only imagined, and experienced the world in ways that changed her deeply. She faced difficulties, made mistakes, and learned from them. Each challenge became a lesson, each success a reward. She realized that her choice had not only opened doors, but it also revealed her inner strength. She felt proud of herself, not for leaving the town, but for having the courage to follow her heart. She also began to understand the town in a new way. From a distance, she could see the traditions, values, and patterns that had shaped her. She felt gratitude for the community that had raised her, the lessons she had learned, and the love she had received. She realized that her choice did not erase her connection to the town, but transformed it. She carried the town within her, in her memories, her manners, and her sense of care for others. She understood that leaving was not a betrayal, but a continuation of the life she had built there as she moved forward. She reflected on the reactions of the townspeople. Some had been critical, others curious, and a few quietly supportive. She did not judge them for their responses. She understood that change is difficult for those who are rooted in tradition. She hoped that in time, they would come to respect her choice and perhaps be inspired to explore their own paths. Her journey was personal, yet it had the power to influence others simply by showing what courage and conviction could achieve them. Young woman continued to navigate her new life with care, curiosity, and determination. She embraced opportunities to learn and grow, seeking experiences that challenged her understanding and expanded her perspective. She valued the friendships she formed, the knowledge she gained, and the independence she had achieved. She also remained connected to her family, writing letters and visiting when she could. These connections reminded her that leaving did not mean abandoning love or responsibility, but finding a balance between personal growth and relational bonds. Her story was unfolding in ways she could not have predicted. She faced moments of doubt and fear, but she also experienced moments of joy and triumph. Each day brought new lessons, new people, and new experiences. She realized that her choice had been the first step in a lifelong journey of self-discovery and growth. She felt grateful for the courage that had allowed her to make the decision, for the support of those who understood her, and for the resilience she had discovered within herself. As she reflected on the town and the choice she had made, she understood that life was not about following paths laid out by others, but about creating a journey that was true to oneself. Her decision had been misunderstood by many, but it had also opened a world of possibilities that she could never have imagined while staying within the familiar boundaries of the small town. She carried the lessons, love, and memories of her home while embracing the challenges. Excitement and growth of the wider world, the young woman had made a choice that the small town could not understand. It was a choice that would shape her life, reveal her strengths, and inspire her to explore the vast world beyond the familiar streets. She faced criticism, curiosity, and doubt with grace and determination. She embraced the unknown with courage and hope. She learned, grew, and connected with people who shared her vision and expanded her understanding. Her choice was not an end, but a beginning. A journey that would continue to unfold with each step she took into the life she had chosen for herself. Life in the new place was not as simple as the young woman had imagined. The streets were busy, unfamiliar, and often confusing. She had to learn how to navigate the city, understand the routines, and adjust to people who moved at a faster pace than those in her small town. Each day brought new challenges that tested her patience and determination. She sometimes felt alone in a crowd of strangers, wishing for the quiet streets and familiar faces she had left behind. At the same time, she knew that every difficulty was an opportunity to grow and to learn how strong she truly was. She reminded herself that leaving the town had not been a mistake, but a brave step toward becoming the person she wanted to be. She faced the first real test when she tried to find a place to live. The apartments she saw were expensive, the landlord strict, and the paperwork confusing. She spent hours visiting small spaces, asking questions, and negotiating terms. Some landlords doubted her abilities and her seriousness, assuming she was inexperienced or young. She felt the frustration and weight of being underestimated, but she also felt a determination to prove herself. After days of searching, she found a modest apartment that suited her needs. It was small but clean, and it felt like a safe place to start building her new life. She carried a sense of triumph for taking control of her future and facing the first big challenge of independence work. Or study presented another layer of difficulty. She joined a place where learning and work were more demanding than what she had known. Her skills and knowledge from the small town were useful, but not enough. She faced moments of doubt when tasks seemed too complex, or when others seemed far ahead of her. She considered giving up sometimes, but remembered why she had left her home. She thought of the dreams that had carried her this far and refused to let fear stop her. Slowly, through careful effort, asking questions, and observing others, she began to find her rhythm. She gained the respect of colleagues and mentors who saw her dedication and willingness to learn. Her confidence grew as she realized that challenges were not obstacles, but lessons, friendships. In the new place were both comforting and different. She met people from many backgrounds, with different ideas, experiences, and ways of living. It was exciting to hear their stories and to share hers. She discovered that people could be kind, supportive, and inspiring, even if they did not understand her small town completely. These friendships helped her navigate difficult moments and made the city feel less intimidating. She learned the importance of listening, asking questions, and appreciating perspectives that were different from her own. Each new connection became a source of encouragement and motivation, reminding her that she was not alone in her journey despite these new connections. She still faced moments of misunderstanding and criticism. Some people questioned her choices, asked why she had left a safe and familiar life, or suggested that she would eventually regret her decision. She listened politely, knowing that their words came from their own experiences and fears. She did not argue or defend herself harshly. Instead, she reflected quietly, using criticism as a mirror to test her own resolve. She realized that living authentically often meant facing misunderstanding and skepticism. Each time she handled these situations with calm and clarity. She felt her inner strength grow. There were days when loneliness struck deeply. She missed the town, the quiet streets, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery, and the familiar conversations with neighbors and friends. These feelings were difficult because they reminded her of the life she had left behind. She allowed herself to feel sadness without judgment, understanding that missing home did not mean she had made a mistake. She wrote letters to her family and sent them messages to maintain connection. Hearing from loved ones reminded her that her departure did not sever bonds, but transformed them into something more flexible and meaningful to her. Growth became apparent in small achievements. She learned to navigate the city confidently, manage her responsibilities, and solve problems on her own. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in her choice. She realized that independence was not just about being physically away from the town, but about thinking, deciding, and acting for herself. She discovered resilience she had not known she possessed and learned to trust her instincts. The sense of accomplishment brought a quiet joy that made the struggles worthwhile education, and learning became a central focus. She enrolled in programs, attended lectures, and read extensively to expand her knowledge. She discovered subjects and ideas that had never been introduced in her small town. These discoveries excited her and sometimes overwhelmed her, but she embraced them fully. Each new piece of knowledge strengthened her understanding of the world and her place in it. She realized that leaving the town had given her a chance to grow in ways she could never have imagined if she had stayed. Challenges continued to appear in unexpected ways. She faced financial difficulties, navigating budgets and expenses that were new and sometimes intimidating. She dealt with misunderstandings in communication, differences in expectations, and the stress of living in a fast-paced environment. Each challenge required patience, problem-solving, and adaptability. She sometimes failed, but she learned from mistakes and found ways to move forward. With each obstacle overcome, she felt more capable and prepared for the future. She was building. Her sense of identity became clearer as she navigated the new world. She realized that leaving the town was not simply about escaping, but about discovering who she was and what she valued. She reflected on her values, dreams, and passions, and aligned her actions with them. This clarity gave her confidence in the face of criticism and misunderstanding. She felt grounded even in the midst of change. The journey became as much about internal growth as external experiences. She learned to embrace uncertainty, trust herself, and celebrate small victories. The young woman also learned to balance connection with independence. She maintained contact with family and close friends, sharing her experiences and learning from their perspectives. She found ways to contribute to communities in her new city, volunteering, collaborating, or helping others who were adjusting to change. This balance made her feel rooted even as she explored new horizons. She realized that being independent did not mean being isolated, and that meaningful relationships could exist across distance and differences. Time passed, she began to feel a sense of belonging in the new place. The streets became familiar, the people recognizable, and the routines manageable. She had carved a space for herself, both physically and emotionally. She felt capable of navigating uncertainty, confident in her choices, and excited about future possibilities. She understood that belonging was not about fitting in completely, but about finding spaces where she could be true to herself while connecting meaningfully with others. Moments of reflection reminded her of the town she had left behind. She understood that it would take time for some people to understand her choice, and some may never do so. She accepted this without bitterness. She realized that understanding often comes from experience, and that her life was a living example of courage and authenticity. She hoped that in time, others might see the value of following one's heart and making choices that honor personal growth. Her days became richer as she continued to explore, learn, and connect. She discovered the beauty in diversity, the strength in challenge, and the joy in discovery. She realized that leaving the small town had been more than a physical move. It was a step toward freedom, understanding, and self-expression. She felt gratitude for the experiences that shaped her and excitement for those yet to come. She also began to mentor and support others who were new to the city or facing choices that required courage. She shared her experiences, offered guidance, and encouraged them to trust themselves. In helping others, she found purpose and satisfaction. She realized that her journey could inspire and uplift others, creating ripples of change beyond her own life. The young woman's perspective on life deepened. She appreciated the town for the foundation it had given her, and valued the lessons of love, community, and care. She cherished the challenges and opportunities of the new world and embraced the growth they offered. She understood that life was a balance of holding on to the past while stepping confidently into the future. Each day strengthened her belief that following her heart was the path to fulfillment and authenticity. Her confidence continued to grow as she faced the unpredictable nature of life in a larger world. She learned to anticipate challenges, adapt to change, and make decisions based on both logic and intuition. She developed patience for herself and others and cultivated resilience that allowed her to navigate setbacks. Each experience reinforced the idea that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward. Despite it, as she reflected on her journey, she realized that misunderstanding and criticism were inevitable when following an unconventional path. She accepted this as part of life and focused on what she could control: her actions, choices, and attitude. She found peace in knowing that she had acted in alignment with her values and had remained true to herself. This inner harmony became a source of strength, guiding her through challenges and opportunities alike. Young woman also discovered the importance of self-care and balance. She took time to rest, reflect, and appreciate the beauty around her. She walked through parks, explored quiet corners of the city, and allowed herself moments of stillness. These practices nurtured her spirit and gave her the energy to face the demands of a busy and dynamic life. She understood that personal growth required both effort and compassion toward oneself over time. She became an example of resilience, independence, and courage. Her journey inspired others to consider their own dreams and choices, even if they came from different backgrounds or faced obstacles. She realized that leading by example could be more powerful than words alone. Her story was a testament to the strength found in following one's heart. Embracing change and pursuing growth, the young woman had faced misunderstanding, loneliness, and challenge in her new life. She had encountered criticism and doubt, but had also experienced joy, learning, and meaningful connection. She had grown in ways she could not have imagined while in the small town. Each experience shaped her, strengthened her, and brought her closer to the life she desired. She understood that the journey of following one's choice was ongoing, filled with lessons, discoveries, and opportunities for courage and growth. She carried with her the lessons of the small town, the values of community, love, and tradition, while embracing the freedom and possibilities of the wider world. She had learned to navigate complexity, balance, independence with connection, and trust herself in making difficult choices. She realized that life was not about avoiding challenge, but about embracing it with awareness, courage, and compassion. Her path was unique, her story unfolding day by day, and her spirit resilient and hopeful. As the young woman continued to live in the new place, she began to reflect more deeply on her journey and the choices she had made. She thought about the small town she had left behind and the people who had shaped her life there. She realized that, even though the town had not understood her choice, it had given her the foundation. She needed to take risks and explore the world. She remembered the quiet streets, the familiar faces, and the sense of community that had surrounded her. Those memories brought both warmth and a gentle ache in her heart. She knew that leaving had been necessary, but it did not mean she had stopped caring about the town or the people she loved. She carried them with her in her thoughts and in the way she approached life. Her reflection helped her understand the value of her experiences and the growth she had achieved. She recognized the courage it had taken to make a choice that was different from what others expected. She realized that understanding and acceptance from the town were not necessary for her to live authentically. She learned to value her own perspective and trust her own judgment. This clarity brought a sense of peace that had been absent in the early days of her journey. She felt more grounded and confident in her path and more capable of handling challenges that arose. She also noticed that the town itself began to change in small ways. Some people who had initially criticized her choice started to see the positive that comes of following a path of courage and independence. They may not have understood everything about her decision, but they recognized the strength and determination she had shown. Her family members began to express pride and admiration for the way she had handled difficulties and grown into a confident, capable individual. These signs of gradual acceptance were encouraging and reinforced her belief that choices made with integrity and thoughtfulness can influence others even. Without direct explanation in her daily life, she continued to face new challenges, and opportunities. She explored neighborhoods she had never visited, discovered local customs, and learned to navigate complex systems. Each experience required patience, adaptability, and problem-solving. She sometimes struggled, but she found ways to persevere. She realized that growth often comes from facing situations that are unfamiliar and sometimes uncomfortable. The young woman began to appreciate the lessons in resilience, flexibility, and determination that each challenge offered. She saw these qualities as essential tools for building a meaningful life beyond the small town she had known. Friendships in the new place deepened as she connected with people who shared her curiosity, values, and ambitions. These friends became a support network that encouraged her to continue pursuing her goals. They provided feedback, shared knowledge, and offered companionship in moments of doubt or loneliness. She learned to rely on these relationships without losing her independence. The balance between connection and personal growth became clearer to her. She realized that meaningful relationships can exist alongside individual ambition, and that support from others can enhance personal development rather than hinder its education remained an important part of her life. She continued to study, attend lectures, and read extensively to expand her understanding of the world. Each new concept and skill added to her sense of capability and confidence. She discovered areas of knowledge that fascinated her and that were far beyond what she could have learned in the small town. This process of continuous learning became a source of joy and motivation. She felt excited about the possibilities that education and knowledge offered, and she became increasingly aware of the potential impact of her own growth on the wider world. Her personal development was also marked by self-reflection. She took time to consider her experiences, the choices she had made, and the lessons she had learned. This reflection helped her gain insight into her values, priorities, and ambitions. She realized that living authentically required continuous attention to her own feelings, thoughts, and actions. She developed the ability to pause, assess situations, and make decisions aligned with her principles. This awareness gave her a sense of control and purpose, reinforcing the importance of intentional living in a world filled with distractions and demands. Challenges continued to appear, but she faced them with increasing confidence. Financial decisions, professional responsibilities, and social dynamics all tested her adaptability. She learned to negotiate, advocate for herself, and manage her time effectively. Each successful resolution reinforced her sense of independence and reinforced the idea that she could thrive outside the familiar environment of her hometown. She discovered that confidence grows not from avoiding difficulty, but from meeting it with thoughtfulness and resilience. Her reflections on the town often brought mixed emotions. She felt nostalgia for the simplicity and warmth of familiar routines, but also recognized the limitations that had motivated her departure. She understood that her choice had been necessary to fulfill her own potential. She felt gratitude for the support and love she had received from her family, and for the lessons she had learned from the community. She began to see her journey as a bridge between the life she had known and the life she was building. This perspective allowed her to appreciate both her past and her present without feeling conflicted. The young woman also started to mentor others who were beginning their own journeys of independence. She shared experiences, offered advice, and encouraged self-reliance. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose and reinforced the value of her own choices. She discovered that teaching and supporting others created a ripple effect that could inspire and empower people to pursue their own paths. She understood that her impact could extend beyond personal achievements and contribute to the growth of a wider community. Over time, she noticed subtle shifts in how others perceived her choice. People who had initially been skeptical began to respect her determination and ability to succeed. While not everyone fully understood her motives, they acknowledged the results of her courage and persistence. These changes reinforced the idea that living authentically has its own form of influence. Actions often speak louder than explanations, and by staying true to her values, she demonstrated the power of choice and resilience. In moments of solitude, she reflected on the lessons of independence, courage, and adaptability. She realized that her journey was not only about leaving a small town, but about discovering and trusting herself. She learned that fulfillment comes from aligning actions with values, embracing challenges, and cultivating meaningful relationships. These insights guided her decisions and reinforced the importance of intentional living. She understood that life is an ongoing process of growth, learning, and adaptation, and that her choices were shaping the trajectory of her future her. Connection to family remained strong despite the physical distance. Regular communication, visits, and shared experiences maintained bonds and provided emotional support. She realized that leaving the town did not sever relationships, but transformed them into connections, built on mutual respect and understanding. She valued these interactions and recognized the role of love, encouragement, and support in sustaining her independence. Her family became partners in her journey rather than constraints, providing both comfort and perspective as she reflected on the town and her own growth. She began to see the broader impact of her choices. Her courage and persistence served as examples for others who faced decisions that challenged tradition or expectation. She realized that living authentically could inspire reflection and change even in communities that were initially resistant. She felt a sense of fulfillment in knowing that her journey could encourage others to explore their own potential and pursue paths aligned with their values. Her days were filled with activity, learning, and reflection. She balanced professional responsibilities with personal growth, relationships, and self-care. She explored new areas, engaged with diverse communities, and continued to expand her understanding of the world. Each experience, whether challenging or rewarding, contributed to her sense of capability and independence. She felt increasingly confident in navigating uncertainty and making decisions that reflected her values and aspirations. The young woman also cultivated mindfulness and self-awareness. She took time to notice her emotions, thoughts, and reactions, allowing her to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This practice helped her manage stress, maintain balance, and make decisions that aligned with her long-term goals. She realized that personal growth involves both external achievements and internal understanding, and she committed to nurturing both aspects of her life. Over time, she became a person of quiet influence. Her choices, determination, and integrity inspired others to consider their own paths. She found satisfaction in seeing the results of her perseverance, both in her own life and in the lives of those she touched. She understood that living authentically requires courage, patience, and resilience, and that her example could provide encouragement to others navigating their own challenges. She also learned to appreciate the value of reflection and gratitude. By acknowledging the contributions of the small town, the lessons of family, and the support of friends, she maintained a sense of balance and perspective. Gratitude became a source of resilience, helping her navigate setbacks and maintain optimism. Reflection allowed her to integrate experiences, recognize growth, and make informed choices about the future. Her journey continued to unfold with new opportunities and experiences. Each step reinforced her understanding of independence, courage, and authenticity. She felt increasingly confident in her ability to navigate life and make choices that honored her values. She recognized that growth is ongoing and that each decision contributes to the trajectory of one's life. She embraced uncertainty, challenges, and learning as essential components of a fulfilling life. The young woman had reached a stage where reflection and acceptance, combined with action and growth, she understood that her journey was shaped by both the small town she had left and the experiences she had gained in the wider world. She appreciated the lessons of courage, resilience, and independence that her journey had provided. She felt prepared for future challenges, confident in her choices, and hopeful about the possibilities ahead. Her story had evolved into one of self-discovery, growth, and meaningful impact, showing that a choice made with intention and courage can transform both the individual and those around them. As the young woman continued her journey, she began to see the long-term impact of the choice she had made. The city that had once seemed intimidating now felt like a place of opportunity and growth. She had faced difficulties, learned from mistakes, and celebrated small victories. Each experience had added to her confidence and strengthened her understanding of the world. She felt proud of herself not just for surviving, but for thriving in ways that had once seemed impossible. She had discovered resilience, independence, and courage that were only revealed when she stepped outside the familiar comfort of the small town. Her connections with people deepened over time. Friends, mentors, and colleagues became sources of inspiration and support. She learned to listen, to share, and to appreciate perspectives different from her own. Each interaction offered insight, encouragement, and sometimes challenge. These relationships taught her that growth is not a solitary endeavor, but one enriched by meaningful connections. She felt gratitude for the support of those who had believed in her, and for the lessons she had learned from everyone she encountered. These connections were part of the foundation on which she built her life. Young woman also reflected on the town she had left behind. She realized that change takes time, and that people often need space to understand choices that are different from tradition. She felt compassion for those who could not immediately understand her decision, and patience for those who were slow to accept it. She understood that her choice could inspire thought and reflection, even if it was initially misunderstood. By living authentically, she had already begun to influence others indirectly, showing them that courage and determination could lead to growth and fulfillment in her work and studies. She continued to excel. Challenges that had once seemed overwhelming became opportunities to develop new skills and confidence. She took on responsibilities, pursued knowledge, and engaged in experiences that stretched her abilities. Each accomplishment reinforced her sense of self-efficacy and her belief in the importance of following her own path. She realized that success is not only measured by recognition or achievement, but also by the growth and understanding that comes from persistent effort and courage. Her sense of identity became clearer as she integrated her past experiences with her present growth. She understood the influence of her small-town upbringing on her values, work ethic, and relationships. At the same time, she embraced the lessons of independence, adaptability, and critical thinking that the city offered. This integration allowed her to navigate life with both confidence and humility. She learned to appreciate her roots while embracing the possibilities that lay ahead, recognizing that her identity was shaped by both the familiar and the new moments of solitude continued to provide reflection and clarity. She walked through parks, sat by rivers, and explored quiet corners of the city. These moments allowed her to process experiences, evaluate choices, and renew her energy. She realized the importance of self-care and reflection in maintaining resilience and perspective. By dedicating time to herself, she strengthened her ability to respond thoughtfully to challenges and opportunities. These quiet moments also reminded her of the connection between her inner growth and her external experiences. The young woman also began to mentor others who were navigating new paths. She shared insights, encouraged independence, and offered guidance based on her own experiences. This work gave her a sense of purpose and reinforced the significance of living authentically. She realized that her journey could inspire and empower others, providing a model for courage, perseverance, and thoughtful decision-making. Mentorship became a way to extend the impact of her choice and create a positive influence. Beyond her personal life, her reflections often returned to the idea of courage. She understood that making unconventional choices required facing uncertainty, criticism, and fear. She realized that courage was not the absence of doubt, but the willingness to act despite it. This understanding strengthened her resolve and reinforced the value of living in alignment with her own principles. She felt proud of the bravery she had shown in leaving the small town and pursuing a path that was true to her heart as she became more established. She also observed changes in her family and in the town. Some people began to appreciate the lessons of independence and self-determination she demonstrated. Even if they did not fully understand her choices, they respected her perseverance, resilience, and integrity. Her family expressed pride and admiration for the strength and confidence she had cultivated. These shifts provided encouragement and reinforced her belief that living authentically can have a lasting impact, even in places that initially resist change.